For years, one question remained unanswered. Why do some people speak in tongues while others never do? Many teachings offered explanations, yet confusion remained. Then came an experience that seemed to transcend earthly understanding. In a moment that felt beyond time itself, a revelation unfolded about prayer, worship, and the mysterious language of the Spirit. What was revealed challenged common assumptions and uncovered a deeper purpose behind speaking in tongues, one that had little to do with performance and everything to do with intimacy, surrender, and spiritual transformation. A profound understanding emerged that challenged many of the assumptions people hold about spiritual gifts. What became clear was that speaking in tongues was never intended to be a public performance or a way for individuals to prove their spiritual status. Yet throughout history, many have misunderstood its purpose. Some have treated it as a badge of honor, while others have viewed it as evidence that one believer is somehow more spiritual than another. The revelation exposed how far these ideas drift from God's original intention. The focus was drawn to the condition of the heart. God is not impressed by outward displays, dramatic expressions, or attempts to gain recognition from others. What matters most is sincerity. A person can stand before a crowd and speak with great passion, yet if the motivation is pride, the spiritual value is diminished. On the other hand, a quiet prayer offered in humility can carry tremendous significance in the presence of God. The revelation emphasized that heaven sees beyond appearances and looks directly into the deepest intentions of every heart. It became evident that speaking in tongues was designed primarily as a means of intimate communication with God. Rather than being a tool for drawing attention, it was meant to create a sacred space where believers could connect with their Creator in a deeper way. In that place, there is no audience to impress and no reputation to protect. There is only a soul reaching toward God with complete honesty and dependence. Many people spend years worrying about how they appear to others. They compare themselves with fellow believers, wondering whether they are spiritual enough or whether they possess the right gifts. Yet the revelation showed that comparison is one of the greatest obstacles to genuine spiritual growth. When attention shifts toward earning approval from people, the focus moves away from God. Spiritual gifts begin to lose their true purpose when they become instruments of competition rather than expressions of worship. The message also revealed that God never intended believers to seek spiritual experiences for the sake of personal recognition. The goal has always been relationship. Every spiritual gift points back to that central truth. Speaking in tongues is valuable not because it makes someone appear spiritual, but because it can help draw a person into closer fellowship with God. Its purpose is to deepen faith, encourage trust, and strengthen the bond between the believer and the Creator. Another powerful insight emerged regarding humility. The most spiritually mature individuals are often not the ones seeking attention. They are the ones who quietly pursue God's presence when no one is watching. Their focus is not on being seen by others, but on knowing God more intimately. They understand that true spirituality is not measured by public displays, but by private devotion, obedience, and love. The revelation concluded with a simple yet life-changing truth. God desires authenticity above all else. Speaking in tongues was never created to elevate one person above another. It was given as an invitation into deeper communion with Him. When believers approach it with humility, sincerity, and a genuine desire to know God, its true purpose is fulfilled. In that moment, the focus is no longer on the gift itself, but on the one who gave it. A remarkable truth began to unfold about the limitations of human language and the depth of God's understanding. Throughout life, people often encounter moments when words seem completely inadequate. There are seasons of overwhelming grief, intense joy, deep confusion, or profound longing where ordinary speech simply cannot capture what is taking place within the heart. In those moments, many struggle to find the right words to pray. They want to express themselves to God, yet they feel trapped by the limitations of their own vocabulary. The revelation showed that God never intended communication with Him to depend entirely upon human eloquence. He understands the deepest thoughts, emotions, fears, and desires long before they are spoken. Nothing about a person's heart is hidden from Him. Even when someone cannot find the words to explain their pain, God already knows every detail, every tear, every silent cry, and every unspoken burden is fully understood in His presence. It became clear that one of the purposes of speaking in tongues is to allow prayer to continue when human language reaches its limit. There are situations where the heart carries more than the mind can organize into words. During those times, spiritual prayer becomes a means of expressing what cannot easily be communicated through ordinary speech. The revelation emphasized that this is not about abandoning understanding, but about recognizing that God's wisdom extends far beyond human limitations. Many believers experience seasons where they feel spiritually exhausted. They know they need to pray, yet they do not know what to say. Their problems seem too complicated, their emotions too tangled, and their circumstances too overwhelming. The revelation showed that God is not frustrated by these moments of weakness. In fact, He invites people to come to Him exactly as they are. They do not need perfect words, carefully prepared speeches, or impressive prayers. What God desires is an open heart willing to seek Him. Another powerful insight emerged regarding trust. Speaking in tongues requires a level of surrender because it involves moving beyond complete reliance on human understanding. The natural mind often wants to control every detail, analyze every situation, and fully comprehend everything that is happening. Yet faith sometimes requires stepping into a place where trust becomes greater than understanding. The revelation demonstrated that God remains faithful even when people cannot fully explain or comprehend His work. The message also revealed that heaven places tremendous value on sincere prayer. God does not measure prayers according to their length, complexity, or beauty. He responds to genuine faith and authentic connection. A simple cry from a broken heart can be more powerful than the most carefully crafted speech. What matters is not how impressive the words sound, but whether they come from a heart that truly seeks God. As the revelation continued, it became evident that God listens to every prayer with perfect attention. No request is overlooked. No burden is ignored. No concern is too small or too insignificant. Even when believers feel alone, confused, or uncertain, God remains fully aware of their situation. His understanding is complete, extending beyond human limitations and reaching into every corner of the heart. The final realization was both comforting and transformative. Human language may have limits, but God's ability to understand does not. When words fail, His understanding remains perfect. When emotions become overwhelming, His wisdom remains constant. When believers do not know how to pray, God still hears the deepest cry of their hearts. That truth brings peace, confidence, and assurance that no sincere prayer is ever lost, forgotten, or misunderstood in His presence. A deeper understanding emerged about spiritual strength and how it is developed. Many people spend years searching for ways to become stronger in their faith. They look for powerful sermons, extraordinary experiences, or dramatic moments that will instantly transform their spiritual lives. While these things can certainly be valuable, the revelation showed that genuine spiritual strength is often built quietly, gradually, and consistently over time. Just as physical strength is not gained in a single day, spiritual maturity is developed through regular connection with God. The message revealed that many believers underestimate the importance of strengthening their inner lives. In the natural world, people understand the need to care for their bodies. They exercise, eat properly, and develop healthy habits because they know strength is necessary to face life's challenges. Yet the spiritual life requires similar attention. The inner person must also be strengthened, prepared, and developed to withstand the pressures, temptations, and difficulties that arise throughout life. It became clear that speaking in tongues can play a unique role in this process. The revelation showed it as a form of spiritual exercise that helps build endurance, stability, and faith. Just as an athlete trains before entering a competition, believers are strengthened through consistent spiritual practice before facing life's greatest battles. The strengthening often happens beneath the surface where it cannot immediately be seen. While outward circumstances may remain unchanged, Something important is taking place deep within the heart. One of the most surprising aspects of the revelation was that spiritual growth does not always feel dramatic. Many people expect every encounter with God to be accompanied by intense emotions or extraordinary experiences. However, the message demonstrated that some of the most significant growth occurs quietly. There are times when a believer may not feel anything unusual, yet God is still at work building faith, courage, patience, and perseverance within them. The revelation compared spiritual growth to the growth of a tree. A tree does not become strong overnight. Long before its branches stretch high into the sky, its roots grow deep beneath the ground. Those roots remain hidden from view, yet they determine the tree's ability to withstand storms. In the same way, spiritual strength is often developed in private moments of prayer, worship, and surrender. What appears invisible to others can become the foundation that sustains a person during life's most difficult seasons. Another important truth emerged regarding preparation. Many people pray for strength only after a crisis arrives. They seek God when trouble appears and wonder why they feel weak or overwhelmed. The revelation showed that God often prepares His people before challenges come. Through regular prayer and spiritual growth, He develops the strength that will be needed for future situations. What may seem like an ordinary moment today could actually be preparing someone for a significant test tomorrow. The message also highlighted the connection between spiritual strength and peace. Strong faith does not mean the absence of problems. It means possessing confidence in God's presence even when difficulties arise. A spiritually strengthened believer can face uncertainty without being consumed by fear. They can endure trials without losing hope because their foundation has been built through consistent time with God. As the revelation continued, it became evident that true spiritual strength is not measured by outward appearances. It is revealed through perseverance, trust, humility, and faithfulness. Strong believers are not necessarily those who never struggle. They are those who continue trusting God despite their struggles. They remain steadfast when circumstances become difficult because their strength comes from a source greater than themselves. The final realization was both encouraging and powerful. God desires His people to be spiritually strong, not merely for their own benefit, but so they can fulfill their purpose, help others, and remain faithful throughout every season of life. Through consistent prayer and deeper fellowship with Him, spiritual strength grows day by day. Though the process may be quiet and often unseen, its results become evident when life's storms arrive and faith remains standing firm. One of the most powerful revelations centered on a truth that is often overlooked in discussions about spiritual gifts. While many people focus on extraordinary experiences, supernatural manifestations, and visible demonstrations of faith, the message revealed that there is something far more important in the eyes of God. Above every gift, ability, and spiritual experience stands one essential quality: love. Without it, even the most impressive spiritual activities lose much of their value. The revelation showed that many believers become fascinated by gifts while neglecting the character that God desires to develop within them. It is possible to spend years pursuing spiritual knowledge, seeking powerful encounters, and learning about divine mysteries, yet still fail to walk in genuine love. This imbalance creates a dangerous situation because gifts can attract attention, but love transforms lives. Gifts may impress people for a moment, but love leaves an eternal impact. It became clear that God's primary concern has never been the outward display of spiritual ability. His greatest desire is that His people reflect His heart. The revelation emphasized that every spiritual gift was intended to serve others, encourage faith, and point people toward God. When gifts become tools for self-promotion or personal recognition, they begin to drift away from their intended purpose. Love keeps spiritual gifts aligned with God's will because love focuses on serving rather than being served. Another important insight emerged regarding the nature of true love. The revelation demonstrated that love is far more than an emotion. It is a decision, a commitment, and a way of living. Genuine love chooses patience when others are difficult. It extends kindness when kindness is undeserved. It forgives when forgiveness feels impossible. It remains humble when pride seeks control. This kind of love reflects the character of God and reveals His presence in a way that words alone never could. The message also revealed that spiritual maturity is not measured primarily by the gifts a person possesses, but by the love they demonstrate toward others. A person may have extraordinary spiritual experiences, yet if they are harsh, arrogant, unforgiving, or selfish, something important is missing. On the other hand, someone who consistently shows compassion, mercy, and humility reflects the heart of God in a profound way. Heaven values character far more than human beings often realize. The revelation highlighted how easily people can become distracted by appearances. Society often celebrates visible achievements, public recognition, and impressive accomplishments. Even within spiritual communities, there can be a tendency to admire those who appear powerful while overlooking those who quietly serve others with love. Yet God's perspective is different. He sees every act of kindness, every sacrifice made for another person, and every moment of compassion that may go unnoticed by the world. Another powerful truth became evident. Love has the ability to reach places that gifts alone cannot. A kind word spoken at the right moment can bring healing to a wounded heart. An act of forgiveness can restore a broken relationship. Compassion can give hope to someone standing on the edge of despair. These expressions of love carry extraordinary power because they reveal God's nature in practical and tangible ways. The message further revealed that love is the foundation upon which all spiritual growth must be built. Without love, spiritual knowledge can become pride. Spiritual gifts can become sources of division. Religious activities can become empty routines. Love protects the heart from these dangers by continually redirecting attention toward God and others rather than self. As the revelation drew to a close, one truth stood above all others. When life is over and earthly achievements fade away, what will matter most is not how many gifts a person possessed or how many impressive experiences they had. What will matter is how faithfully they loved God and how sincerely they loved others. Love is not merely one virtue among many. It is the very essence of God's character. Every spiritual gift has its place, but love remains the greatest of all because it reflects the heart of God Himself. A powerful revelation emerged concerning one of the greatest obstacles that prevents many believers from experiencing the fullness of what God desires for their lives. Surprisingly, the obstacle is not a lack of faith, knowledge, intelligence, or opportunity. It is fear. Fear often operates quietly in the background, influencing decisions, limiting spiritual growth, and keeping people from stepping into deeper levels of trust and obedience. Many do not even realize how much fear affects their relationship with God until they begin to examine their hearts honestly. The revelation showed that fear has the ability to create invisible barriers. It convinces people to remain in places where they feel safe and comfortable, even when God is inviting them to move forward. Fear whispers that failure is inevitable, that mistakes will be embarrassing, and that taking a step of faith is too risky. Over time, these thoughts can become so familiar that people begin to accept them as truth. Yet the revelation made it clear that fear often speaks the loudest when God is preparing to do something significant. One of the most common fears revealed was the fear of what other people might think. Many believers desire a deeper relationship with God, but they hesitate because they worry about criticism, judgment, or misunderstanding. They become more concerned with protecting their image than pursuing God's presence. The revelation exposed how dangerous this can become. When the opinions of people carry more weight than the voice of God, spiritual growth becomes restricted. Fear of rejection can prevent individuals from embracing opportunities that God has placed before them. Another important truth emerged regarding the fear of making mistakes. Many people believe they must understand everything perfectly before they can move forward in faith. They wait until every question has been answered and every uncertainty has disappeared. However, the revelation showed that faith and complete certainty rarely exist together. Throughout history, God's people have often been called to trust Him before they fully understood what He was doing. Growth requires movement, and movement requires trust. The message also revealed that fear frequently disguises itself as wisdom. Sometimes people convince themselves they are simply being cautious or practical when, in reality, they are allowing fear to control their decisions. While wisdom is important, there is a difference between wise discernment and fear-based hesitation. Wisdom seeks God's guidance. Fear seeks personal safety above all else. The revelation demonstrated that fear often focuses on worst-case scenarios, while faith focuses on God's faithfulness. As the understanding deepened, it became clear that fear not only limits spiritual experiences, but can also weaken confidence in God's promises. Fear causes people to focus on their weaknesses instead of God's strength. It magnifies obstacles while minimizing God's power. It creates doubt where trust should exist. The revelation showed that many believers spend years praying for courage without realizing that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to trust God even when fear is present. Another profound insight was that God does not expect perfection before obedience. Many individuals delay taking steps of faith because they feel inadequate. They believe they must become stronger, wiser, or more spiritually mature before God can use them. Yet the revelation revealed that God often works through imperfect people who are simply willing to trust Him. Throughout history, ordinary individuals accomplished extraordinary things, not because they were fearless, but because they chose faith over fear. The message emphasized that every significant step of spiritual growth requires surrender. Fear thrives on control. It wants certainty, guarantees, and complete understanding. Faith, however, requires placing trust in God's character even when the future remains unclear. This surrender is not weakness, it is strength. It reflects confidence that God is able to guide, protect, and sustain those who place their trust in Him. As the revelation came to its conclusion, one life-changing truth became unmistakably clear. Fear will always offer reasons to stay where it is comfortable, but faith invites people into a greater relationship with God. The blessings, growth, and deeper experiences that many seek often lie on the other side of fear. When believers choose trust over anxiety, obedience over hesitation, and faith over doubt, they begin to discover possibilities they never imagined. The greatest victories are often experienced not when fear disappears, but when faith becomes stronger than fear. The final revelation was perhaps the most important of all because it brought everything into proper perspective. Throughout history, many believers have devoted enormous amounts of time and energy to understanding spiritual gifts, seeking supernatural experiences, and pursuing deeper encounters with God. While these things can be meaningful and valuable, the revelation made it clear that none of them are the ultimate goal. The greatest purpose of every spiritual gift, every act of worship, every prayer, and every spiritual experience is to bring people into a closer relationship with God Himself. It became evident that many people unintentionally place their focus on the gifts rather than the giver. They become fascinated with spiritual manifestations, signs, and experiences while overlooking the one those experiences are meant to reveal. The revelation showed that this is like becoming so captivated by a doorway that one never enters the room beyond it. Spiritual gifts are important, but they were never intended to become the center of faith. Their purpose is to draw attention toward God and deepen fellowship with Him. A powerful understanding emerged about the nature of true relationship with God. Genuine fellowship is not built merely upon religious activity or spiritual experiences. It is built upon love, trust, surrender, and daily communion. Just as healthy relationships require communication and time together, a deeper relationship with God develops through consistent connection with Him. The revelation emphasized that God desires more than occasional moments of attention. He desires an ongoing relationship that influences every aspect of life. The message revealed that many believers spend years searching for extraordinary encounters while overlooking God's presence in ordinary moments. They expect Him to speak only through dramatic experiences and powerful events. Yet the revelation demonstrated that God often reveals Himself through simple acts of faithfulness, quiet moments of prayer, and daily acts of obedience. His presence is not limited to extraordinary occasions. He desires to walk with His people through every moment of their lives. Another significant truth became clear regarding intimacy with God. Spiritual gifts can inspire faith, encourage believers, and strengthen the church, but they cannot replace a personal relationship with Him. A person may experience remarkable spiritual moments and still remain distant from God if their heart is not fully surrendered. Conversely, someone may never have dramatic experiences, yet enjoy a deep and meaningful relationship with God through sincere faith and devotion. The revelation showed that intimacy with God is measured not by experiences, but by closeness of heart. As the understanding deepened, it became apparent that God's greatest desire is not simply to bless His people, but to know them and be known by them. He invites believers into a relationship characterized by trust, love, and continual dependence upon Him. This relationship is not based on fear or obligation. It is built upon the understanding that God genuinely desires fellowship with those He has created. The revelation highlighted the incredible truth that the Creator of the universe seeks a personal connection with every individual. The message also revealed that spiritual growth reaches its highest purpose when it produces greater love for God. Every prayer, every lesson learned, every challenge overcome, and every gift received should ultimately lead to a deeper appreciation of His goodness, wisdom, and faithfulness. If spiritual experiences do not bring a person closer to God, they have missed their most important purpose. Another profound realization emerged concerning life's ultimate priorities. At the end of life, many of the things people chase will lose their significance. Achievements, possessions, status, and recognition will all fade away. What remains is the relationship a person has cultivated with God. The revelation showed that this relationship is the greatest treasure anyone can possess because it extends beyond earthly life into eternity. As the revelation came to its conclusion, one final truth stood above everything else. God is not merely offering gifts, blessings, or experiences. He is offering Himself. The deepest longing of the human heart can only be satisfied through fellowship with Him. Every spiritual gift points toward that reality. Every act of worship leads in that direction. Every genuine encounter with God serves the same purpose, to draw people closer to His heart. When that becomes the focus, everything else finds its proper place, and life is transformed in ways far greater than any spiritual experience alone could ever accomplish.